Hook, Hold, Repeat, Capturing Rangatahi Attention Online features Jessica Todd, Perrin Hastings, Hope Papali'i and moderator Sheldine Seth. It was recorded live at the 2025 Spada Conference.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Hook, Hold, Repeat, Capturing Rangatahi Attention Online session today. My name is Sheldine. I'm facilitating this conversation with these fabulous emerging producers. So this is us. I'll get everybody to introduce themselves first and then we'll get into the chat. So starting with you, Jess.
Kia ora, I'm Jessica Todd and I am the producer and one of the co-creators of The Sender. And The Sender was a 18-part scripted series, vertical, which we released on Instagram, TikTok and YouTube. And this is our 30-second trailer for you all to watch.
You all got these scripted texts, right?
Confess your sins to one another or else I'll share them with the world.
Who's sinless?
This is The Sender.
That's bad. Whoever sent these knew we were going to be together tonight. You do this. We're over.
This is only fun for you if I'm your dirty little secret.
1 hour till I ruin your lives?
This is not good.
Is it you?
There's one sure way to find out.
Let's get lit!
Work. Kia ora koutou. My name is Perrin. I go by she, they pronouns. And I am the writer, director, host, and co-creator of The Gender Agenda. It's a, thank you. It's a 5-part docu-series that went up on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. And here's our trailer.
My name is Perrin Hastings. I'm an animator, game master, and non-binary creature of the night.
Oh, you're here for the tea, honey.
Female hyenas, they actually have pseudo-penis.
Oh,
Super interesting.
go on.
Traditionally, I can slip right in with a white household. Yeah.
I love your work.
I don't.
We need diversity, just literally for society to function.
Did you want to try on the punk vest?
How did you get into wrestling, by the way?
That's the kind of woman I wanted to be, a hot girl.
Hot girl.
In this series, I'll be diving deep into the everyday struggles surrounding gender and biological sex to discover how this all works.
Honey, you don't need people to validate who you are. You already know who you are.
This is The Gender Agenda.
Talofa, my name is Hope Papali'i and I'm one of the co-producers on First Place, and that was with Tiki Lounge. I co-produced it with Eileen Lee, Lisa Talma as EP and Nicholas Smith.
Today's the first day of Polyfest practice. Someone group after school today.
Maonga whawhatau.
Tell me why the only person who wants to join Poly group isn't even someone.
What's a Polyfest?
What stage are we at? Polyfest is like the Olympics of Pacific dance. This year is the 50th anniversary, which means St. Gabriel's has to make it count.
Lua pati male St. G's?
Lua pati male when? When?
You are all on detention. Hey, you are going to be spending it in here every day after school.
Let's not have a repeat of last year.
We had a little incident.
It wasn't my fault. Things happen sometimes. That day was just a series of unfortunate things that happened. 2025 is gonna turn out really, really good.
She seemed like splashing her hair.
Like the motorbike style?
Can you just tell us what we need to fix?
For you, it's your face.
We've actually got 5 weeks to show everyone what we've got. So we need to focus.
Oi, focus. We have a new student, Leone.
She's from St. Teresa. They come first place every year. Safe space for all of Tangaloa's creatures.
It's all right.
I'm the leader. This is my group. How about I move you out of this group, Leone? Move me, Ben.
Leaders who are for your popo. always want to show off at the front.
We're going to keep going until this is perfect.
Good leaders, they lead from behind.
You better be ready for this.
It's not good you have not come to see your mum at the cemetery yet.
Feels like kind of my destiny to be leader and to be topo like she was. Polyphis means everything to me.
And Able produced its original series, Sight Unseen, that was released earlier this year. It is a 5-part, 5 to 10 minute factual series that launched on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and our website and RNZ as secondary platforms. This series features open audio description, which is one of the services that we provide for media accessibility.
I wanted nothing to do with the cane. I didn't want to change my personality to the cane.
My vision was getting worse and hung up the skis until I found out about adaptive skiing.
Being low vision and in trans, I've got to think, is it safe to be here? Probably not.
Got your eye boogers.
It's like you are caring for a giant, furry 2-year-old.
Having the spiritual side, music, and the disability, it's being able to nourish all of those.
Sight Unseen, watch now.
Amazing productions from these producers over here. I think what's worth opening up this session with first is understanding our youth audiences and grounding us in what the research has told us about rangatahi media behaviour. Because understanding who we're trying to reach fundamentally shapes how we make and distribute content. The 2024 Where Are the Audiences study, alongside the 2022 Youth Audiences research from New Zealand On Air, makes one thing really clear, that 15 to 24-year-olds are not just a younger version of the mainstream audience, they are a completely different media demographic. The research says that every single day, about 89% of youth are on social media and consuming global online video on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram Reels, and Snapchat. And by comparison, only about 30% of them watch TV every day, and they spend about 17 minutes on New Zealand on-demand platforms. Their attention doesn't live in our traditional environments. It lives in global, algorithm-driven feeds. And their discovery pathways are quite different. The youth study tells us that their number one way of finding out about content is through word of mouth, through social media platforms, and very closely by algorithm recommendations. But what was interesting about that research is it shows that they actually really do value New Zealand content. They love Kiwi humour and authenticity and seeing Aotearoa reflected. But their behaviour means they rarely encounter it. So most New Zealand stories live on platforms that they're not spending meaningful time on. So with this session, if we want to reach rangatahi, it's about making great content where they are. And so this is exactly what these producers have done. Content needs to be social first, platform native, and algorithm friendly. And what I like to think of our generation is that we're a bit of a bridging generation. You know, we're familiar with waiting a week for an episode to drop on TV, but we also grew up with the emergence of Instagram and TikTok and seeing how that content performs and what actually rings true for people. And so I think one really interesting part of creating this content is identifying who we're making it for. And I think we each aimed to reach different groups of people because 15 to 24 is a wide range of people, a big age bracket, and there's subsections, little micro communities within that. And I think we each did that, right? Hope, do you want to talk to who you were trying to reach with your content?
Yeah, so mine's a Polynesian audience. I don't know if anyone's just seen the Pacific Champs with the NRL, how big the Tonga versus Samoa game was. Polynesians love supporting themselves on screen. We love to see our representation. So I think with understanding our audiences for first place, it really came down to the writers' table and making sure that the representation of the writers, they know who they're writing about. So it was making sure that our writers had gone, well, because the story's on Polyfest, which for a Polynesian kid, it's such a big thing in their lives. So we had 3 writers, Mario Faumui, who's grown up in the Polyfest system. He's also covered it on Fresh TV. Bianca Seinafo, who grew up doing Polyfest as well. And then we had the Licky Jackson Burke, who also was a writer on Inky Pinky Ponky, and then he did a theatre piece about Polyfest. So it was all, these writers know these kids and they know this world. So that was really important.
Yeah, that sounds super important. And Perrin, I would say that your content you made from a place of, wishing or wanting that type of content was available to you when you were that age bracket. Can you tell me a bit more about the understanding of that audience?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, being a part of the trans community and just the queer and rainbow community in general, I think there was an innate need for me and other members of that community to see ourselves in content that wasn't just horrifying news reports. And, when we're talking about trans and queer and Takatapui youth, there was so much that I wish I saw and understood when I was 15, even when I was 18 or 20. And I found it important to just go out and really figure out where those audiences were online, what the little pockets of community were, and what kind of influences as well that they were following. And I found that so much of it was just people not just living proudly, but also really honestly and authentically sharing their own personal stories online. And so we wanted to capture that. We wanted to get out there and show some joy, show the reality of everything that's happening right now, and also just deal with a lot of those weird talking points that attack us from all sides with a little bit of humor and go, hey, we're actually human. And why not do it on the places that not only our audiences, but those talking points are platformed so much. So, yeah.
For sure. And Jess, for your production, where did you sit in your production between that 15 to 24? Because that is quite a broad range, and I know you would have done some thinking and personas, what kind of group you were trying to meet with that piece of content.
Yes, we did a lot of thinking about that. So because we were making a pretty broad, campy teen drama, we kind of knew already that we would have, it would have, a default female skewing audience. And also as two female creators, Liv McClarman and myself, we were like, we'll probably end up organically having a more female skewed audience, which we did. But then we made quite a specific decision to make content that we thought would appeal to that 18 to 25 demographic, like that half of that audience, because younger audiences watch content for older audiences, but older audiences don't normally watch down or younger. So we were like, if we make something that appeals to that older audience that might feel a bit scandalous or a bit naughty or maybe a bit old for that other audience, they'll watch it, but not the other way around.
Yeah. That's really, really interesting. And I know for us in our early days of the concept of our show, we really put thought into who exactly do we want to reach? What do they normally watch on the platforms? What kind of activities would they do outside of social media? We really, really thought hard about that kind of stuff. And that kind of also influences the next part, which is the creative strategy. Why did you make your content the way that it is? And that could look from anything to how many episodes you made, how long the episodes are, what was your story exposition across these episodes. And I know that, Jess, you would have faced some interesting decisions made with the different platforms and episode count and numbers and things like that. So tell us more.
Yes, I think if I could go back and do it again, I wouldn't release the show on 3 platforms. That was a bit much because there's no uniformity between them. And so just the technical outputs for each platform were so different, and it was really overwhelming to be putting out, 18 videos with different, they all have different requirements and all have different legal requirements and music licensing requirements. It was really full on. It was a massive learning curve. But we also made some really strategic decisions early on that I think served us really well in terms of, because we were a scripted show, we were like, how do we get people to keep scrolling through the show? How do we get them to, watch one video and want to keep watching more? And so we made some decisions that like each episode has to start with something catchy and it has to end with a cliffhanger. And so, which is crazy for 2.5 minute episodes, like it's moving so quickly. And what we ended up doing was actually just writing our show in a full script, like a full 44-minute script, and then kind of going through and breaking it up into those episode numbers and then going back and kind of doing hooky things like that afterwards.
That's really cool. Yes. And you did the full commit, right, with your camera to
We
vertical.
flipped it fully,
Yep.
yes, on its side. Yeah, we did commit to that. We were going to shoot landscape, and then we were going to shoot landscape to upload that to YouTube, and then we were going to do a vertical crop for Instagram and TikTok. And then our lovely EP, Jo Raj, kind of convinced us. She was like, if Instagram and TikTok are your primary platforms that you're focusing on, that you think you're going to get the most of the audience on, like, wouldn't you want to optimize for that? And also YouTube, and also what happened, and this is sort of, I mean, we'll probably touch on this again, is like the scariness of these digital platforms is that they can change their rules between the time you get the funding and the time you have to release the show. And so what kind of happened, there were some bad ones and some good ones for us, but a kind of good one was when that potential US TikTok ban was coming in. What that did was prompt YouTube to change its shorts requirements. So shorts on YouTube is the vertical platform. And originally when we got the funding, you could only have videos up to 1 minute long on shorts. But that TikTok ban meant that they changed that to 3 minutes. So we were like, yes.
Did you find it hard shooting in that ratio? Like,
There's definitely some stuff you have to get your head around at the start. Like all of a sudden, when you're location scouting, floors and ceilings become really important in a way that they haven't before. And, Isaac, our DOP, and Liv, our director, they spent a lot of time blocking those scenes. So, like, you'll see our cast in big group shots, like, standing in big pyramids instead of, like, in a group, like, just ways to do that vertically. And then we had our big monitor on set, which was flipped on its side as well. It only takes a day, and then you're into it, you're used to it.
Karen, what kind of challenges did you face, or what creative strategies did you adopt for your series, with it being mainly YouTube focused, right? YouTube first?
Yeah, so we were YouTube first, and then we also posted stuff on Instagram and TikTok. So we ran into the same issues of posting on 3 different platforms. You've got 3 different requirements. And for us, because we were shooting horizontally first, we then had to go through and figure out, well, how do we make this vertical? And a lot of it came down to almost shooting, well, we shot in 4K so that we could always have extra room if we wanted to crop further. But we almost had to frame things in a square format so that we could have most of the action towards the middle of the frame, and then it was easier to crop either way. But especially in that first season, we're running season 2 now, that was something we didn't learn until a decent way through, where we went, oh, this has to be vertical too. Oh no. What do we do? But outside of that, when it comes to the stories, I think because our show was factual, it was easy for us to approach it sort of like you would a YouTube essay, where it's like, okay, we've got 10 minutes to really unpack this one issue and see where it takes us. And, we set up the typical 3 kind of story blocks, and every single segment we had, we were like, okay, how do we evolve the issue from here into the next? Then we set up having 3 main guests, as well as it being built around my own personal story to kind of frame it all in. So, yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I definitely had flashbacks to when I was a teenager making YouTube videos and just like trying to figure things out. And I think sometimes when you're making this premium content, there is a temptation to think, you know, oh, I've got to learn from film, I've got to learn from these established TV series. But there are so many creators out there right now on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, doing these amazing pieces of content that are just made for socials. And there is so much you can learn from their strategies, even as independent individuals, because they're getting millions of views every day. You know, there's learning that they've done already.
Yeah, for sure. And First Place Hope took a completely different strategy to the likes of our productions in the sense that you guys produced a feature. What was the decision making around making a feature?
Well, we were quite lucky with the feature because we know it's a formula that worked. I previously did Inky Pinky Ponky with Tiki Lounge, which today is sitting at 2.6 million views.
Wow.
But
Congrats.
we by chance made Inky Pinky, not by chance, well, it sat as 5 10-page scripts. But we shot it like that, we shot it in episodic, and then we came to cutting it and we sort of thought, okay, this actually sits as a feature. And so we put it out as a feature, and that rung true to kids as well. They loved it as a feature. And I think for, I don't know, poly kids and all teens, they do love films. I mean, the film industry isn't dying, just how they're accessing it is dying. People can't afford to go to the movies, but they want to watch movies. So that's what happened with Inky. Kids were just watching it again and again and again. And then so we got to First Place and we were like, okay, let's take the formula that works, but let's have it be its own piece. And what else do we want to talk about for teen dramas? So we got to Polyfest because it builds up to something. And yeah, I took some screenshots this morning of some YouTube comments on First Place. Can I read one? Okay, so this comment is from Sasa. And also today, First Place has got 600k views. And so we released it in, I think, March. So we're sitting at 600k views. Sasa goes, this for real feels like a Samoan Disney Channel movie, and I mean it in the best way possible. There's humour, drama, tiny bit of romance, but most of all, there was heart. This movie had great lessons in resilience, leadership, and pressure. We feel trying to carry these family legacies. It was awesome. Thank you so much, Coconut TV. And that's got 200 likes. I'll just read one more. Okay, so this one is Stay Seki. The fact that we got to watch this masterpiece for free is so great. This film was so good that it's also got me feeling mixed emotions as well as everyone else. I loved how the movie legit sums up what happens during Polyfest and the struggles because they're all true. I'm so happy that I got to watch this and definitely already told everyone about it. This movie helped me feel more connected to my Samoan side, period. And so I thank you for this beautiful movie, repping our Polynesian roots. And so that's got 400 likes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so good. And it's definitely about that accessibility to reaching content like this, right? So because it's YouTube, anybody can jump on and watch it, which is awesome. And
if they like it.
That's right,
Otherwise
if they like it.
Yeah, if it speaks to them.
100%. Yeah. And it's clear that it resonated with your audience. You know, for us, one of our creative strategies for our series was ensuring that it was accessible with the open audio description and also showing what gold standard looking captions look like. And so that's something that was important to us, and we feel like that was part of our strategy to reach the people we wanted with our series. I know another part in creative strategy is coming to terms with a lot of the community guidelines with these platforms. They each have different rules and regulations and in ways that you can, you know, share your stories or show. I know that it was a thing for you with the sender and likely for you too, Perrin, in terms of what you can show and what you can say online. And that was a big challenge. Do you want to talk a bit to that, Jess?
Yeah, I told you I could go on and on and on about this one. We knew early on, so our original concept was we thought we were going to make like New Zealand Euphoria, and it was going to be like edgy and cool, and like there was going to be like drugs and sex and stuff was going to happen. And then we were like, oh, we'll get banned off the platforms if we do that. and as a legal requirement with NZ On Air funding, can't really do that. And so we kind of had to do a big switch on and then do a lot of research before we got into scripting as to what we'd even be allowed to put on those platforms. Because there is some very clear guidelines, and then there's some areas that they keep purposely very vague. And also, because all these platforms are international, they also couldn't guarantee that it would necessarily, fly in every single country. Like Saudi Arabia's views on sex education is very different to New Zealand or Australia or even the US's views. And I use sex education as an example because in one of our episodes, it opens on a biology book and they're looking at diagrams of the vagina and penis and talking about it. And we were like, is that going to be okay? Are we going to be able to get that in? And we were like, no, that falls firmly under sex education, which is allowed. But we had to be conscious of our amount of swearing or how much romance we could have. There were some guidelines on Instagram that said you could have everything up to passionate kissing. And then you can't. Then you'll get blacklisted or taken down or all those terms. And so we were like, okay, cool. So we did we intimated masturbation, but we got away with that. But really interestingly, on TikTok, one of our episodes that I would say has the least amount of that sort of content, they wouldn't let us put any financial spend behind it. Any marketing spend behind it, because they said it had they had this whole sort of vague thing of it's got potentially pornographic images, and it's just some shirtless dude.
Oh, that's so random.
Yeah.
These platforms, they can be so hard to work with. What about you, Perrin? What was your experience in that with, sharing really important information and getting it right and making sure it stays online?
Yeah, we're in a sort of interesting place. I mean, we ran into a lot of the same issues around, swearing. I think YouTube has some arbitrary rules around no swearing in the first minute or so, and then the next month they change that to no swearing at all, and then if you put a censor beep, sometimes they pick that up and then go, no, let's suppress this. So yeah, there's a bit of playing with that, but I think queer content in particular has a strange relationship with social media, because there are a lot of companies, I'll say Meta in particular, where they don't openly say that they suppress queer content, but you look at the numbers and they absolutely do. So sometimes we see, and I even saw just the other day, I put up a community animated story that starts off with, my friend texted me and said, do you want to meet up with my lesbian friend? And the word lesbian got that severely suppressed on YouTube Shorts even. So we went from getting, 1.2K overnight on most of those animated community stories to getting 29 views just because of the word lesbian.
That's insane.
Yeah. So there can be a bit of back and forth with that. And I think it also speaks to the kind of 24-hour nature of posting on socials, where you do have to have people monitoring the release and being able to creatively adjust if something is being severely suppressed, or if something even just looks a little bit odd. Sometimes the warnings won't come up. You need to be able to react and even repost if only 29 people have had this content delivered.
Because just to reiterate how confusing and difficult it is to make shows for social media, our queer episodes are the most viewed.
It's funny how it all works, hey? And I know other challenges that you would have faced in the development and making of the series would be, I know music would have been a big part too, in terms of wanting to get it right and ensuring that your music doesn't, get it pulled down off those platforms because of the licensing. Do any of you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so I must have spent 2 weeks of my life full time, researching what are appropriate music licensing for Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And I swear I spoke to every expert in the field. I was like talking to Armane. I was like talking to Rachel Fawcett, who did Noob in the past. You know, we were working with Big Pop Music Publishing, and like, and everyone. We were talking to ChatGPT and being like, "What do you got?" We were talking to lawyers, and no one could give us a conclusive answer on what the like legal, including the platforms themselves, on what like the legal worldwide requirements would be for the type of music licensing we would need. And that's because we had made a creative decision that we wanted to use like actual New Zealand pop tracks, like not music, not like, you know, just the words escaped me, you know.
Stock music.
Thank you, that one. Yeah, and so therefore, how would we license that? And so I managed to figure out that basically as long as we bought like a worldwide sync license and had it licensed appropriately for social media, that would be okay. Turns out it wasn't. And we found out 2 weeks before release that TikTok won't let you have more than 1 minute of accumulative music per video. Even if your video is like 40 minutes long, which it can be, you can't have more than 1 minute of accumulative music that's not from like the TikTok library. And we were like, because our episodes were like 2.5, 3 minutes, and a lot of them have more than 1 minute of music. And we only found that out through an incidental conversation with our marketing person from New Zealand On Air, who had been talking to her colleagues at New Zealand On Air, who had just come back from Australia, who had just had a meeting at TikTok Australia and the music guy. And they put us in touch with him, and he's like, yeah, sorry. And we were like, oh. So we had to completely recut our episodes for TikTok about 2 weeks out.
Stressful.
Yeah, and make decisions about like, okay, well, there's the 1 minute mark. All right, cool. And yeah, that was a nightmare. It was so stressful.
I can imagine. And that's the thing with these platforms, is so much can change in the time from when you start to finish, that they have to be malleable. They have to be, you've got to be able to adjust with the changes so that they can sing online, which is stressful. But we did it, guys. We did it. Now I'd like to really touch on like a big part of these productions is that there was a lot of mentorship and professional growth that happened with these productions. And I know each of us would have had an EP assigned or that worked with us for developing and seeing it right to the end. And I just want to touch on, you know, what value that had for you. Maybe Hope you'd like to start.
Yes. So my EPs were Lisa Talma and Nicola Smith. I'll start with Lisa Talma because it's quite hard to just talk about Lise for this kaupapa because she's been such a champion throughout my career, and for a lot of kids that have come under that Tiki Lounge, CocoNet umbrella, she's given us a lot of mahi, and she's taught us all we know, basically. I wouldn't be sitting here if it weren't for Lise. She gave me my first producing opportunity. Same with Nicola Smith. I basically don't work if it isn't for those two giving me mahi. But yeah, with Lise, it's a generational thing. My auntie Mona Papali'i, who was the first Polynesian on screen, she gave Lise her first tour around TVNZ. So it was only fitting that Lise, gave me my first opportunity. And I bring up my auntie because I want to read a quote that I always go back on that my auntie said back in her time. Sorry to bring up my phone all the time. So she said, we fear TV more than Pākehās do because there are so few of us in television. Television doesn't belong to us. We could be in South Africa for all we know. And that's always stuck with me because, this was the 80s and I think Lisa's come through in her generation and she's completely changed the landscape of television for Polynesians. And she was ahead of the curve with CocoNet and Tiki Lounge, especially she's been putting stuff through YouTube since the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And so she's built her audience and it's a strong audience.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, I don't know if I answered that. And Nicola Smith is the same. They just believe in me and they trust that I can do the work, and I feel so safe in their environments to really thrive. Yeah.
That's great. So you felt like you can try things.
I can try things and I can
and-
also lean on them.
Yeah.
With any prod questions. Spiritually, I can lean on them. Mentally, I can lean on them. But yeah, they're the same. There's all the other people on First Place can say the same about those two. They're always supporting us and making sure we feel safe and supportive, and also making space for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really important. What about you guys? What was your experience with that EP producer relationship on your productions?
Our EP was Joe Raj, and similar to Hope, Joe has been kind of accidentally my mentor for the last 5 or 6 years or so. We met at a workshop and just hit it off, and she has, again, kind of, I don't feel like I'd work if not for Joe Raj. And I met her at a time where I was really burnt out and disillusioned with this industry. I'd had quite a few bad working experiences, and I didn't really feel like I had someone who I could look at who was older and more experienced than me and go, I want your life, not just like your career, but like your life. And well, you all know in this room what they. And I met Jo, and she just like led with kindness and compassion. And I was like, oh, you can work in this industry and do those things. How fantastic. And so this was the first time, I'd had her on one of my projects, and God, it's just such a relief to have that person. And you're like, and Jo knows everyone in this industry. She's like, don't worry, I'll connect you to blah, blah, blah. And then you go, da, 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 and we'll solve this problem, it's fine. Ding. And you're like, oh, great. Well, she's like, don't worry, 20 years ago, this happened to me, and da, 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 da. And I'm like, cool, thank you, Jo. It's, that mentorship is so incredible. And I'm so glad that was like factored into this fund, that we all got this funding under.
Yeah. So our EP was Amanda Beckett, as well as Kim Harrop. They're both with Rude Girl Productions. And to say they mentored us throughout this process, I think is an understatement. Without them, I mean, I've been an animator for 6 years. I've been very used to being behind the computer for any kind of production that we do. And being sort of given the keys by them to step out from behind the computer, get onto a production set, get into the field, and actually make these stories exist was incredible. And that goes into all the kind of finicky behind the scenes things around, booking travel, booking locations, making sure that legally we're allowed to do things. Stuff that I wouldn't have thought of otherwise, because I'm just like, I've got the story I want to make. Cool. I'll do it then. And also I was lucky enough to be mentored by Ramon Te Wake, who's legend. And she was with me.
She's only 21 though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she was a part of the youth audience we're actually going for. And Kim Harrop actually introduced me to Ramon, and from the moment we met, she gave me a hug, and I just felt so welcomed in to not just the production industry, but also just my queer trans community, which I was connecting with for the first time. And it can't be understated the impact of having people who have been in this industry for a while, or a few years. For Ramon, she's only 21, and having them reach down and be like, "Hey, you want to make this cool thing? I want to make it with you. Let's do that together."
It's really awesome. For our EP was Dan Buckingham, and what I really loved about having that mentorship and that him as EP is he really let us do stuff and just try stuff, and was there when we needed him. Like, oh, should we do this? Oh, we want to shoot on the mountain. We want to do all this kind of stuff, and always just was there as a safety net for our production. But I really feel like it was driven by our production team. And I just want to shout out Jazz Dos Santos, who was producer as well. It was definitely a big step up. It would have been head of department roles for us for the first time for some, and that was wicked. And I am just so glad to have had that opportunity. So once we've made this stuff, it has to get out into the world, and we would have taken different approaches into how this, met the audiences that we endeavoured to reach. Do you guys want to talk a bit about how, what your rollout was like? And do you want to start, Perrin, on how that all went for you?
Yeah, for sure. So with social media, as opposed to putting something up on TV or in cinemas, we had the interesting conundrum of not having a built-in audience. So our brand was launching independently. We'd created our own social media channels on all of our platforms, and we had to build that from scratch. So before we even thought about releasing our content, we had to get the algorithm on our side.
Mm-hmm.
We had to go out and follow similar creators. We had to like a bunch of content. We had to, start like grooming the algorithm to place us correctly before we even do anything. And then it was also a long organic marketing campaign. So we, as we were shooting, did little questionnaires with each of our guests. We did what advice would you give your 15-year-old self? If you could have any food right now, what would you have? Just these little bite of questions that could potentially go viral if everything went super great. But being able to use those, post those, and then also collaborate with each of our guests who had their own audiences to bring them in and be like, hey, here's another safe place. Like, hey, come on in, we've got something cooking for you. And then once we were actually releasing, those collaborations did amazingly for us. It brought in tens of thousands of people from a platform that had literally nothing before. And then on top of that, we did a lot of paid marketing as well. So that cannot be understated. Having a boosting campaign on YouTube, on TikTok, on Meta is very, very much needed if you don't have an audience already, because there are going to be a lot of people out there who will be super passionate about your project, but just haven't had it show up on their feed. So yeah, that's a big part of it. And also just making sure when you're boosting content that the ads don't come across too advertising, and considering whether you want to do skippable ads or non-skippable, because when somebody's trying to watch content that they're super connected with and suddenly they have your face show up on screen and they're stuck with it for 30 seconds, they may not leave with the best impression of you. So
Did you produce ads to do?
Yeah. So it was mostly content that we already had as a part of the show as well, like little cut down snippets. But I mean, we did a trailer. I wrote ad copy and stuff for that with Kim guiding me. And yeah, no, it's just about getting in people's faces, hooking them in, and also not making them hate you in the process.
You would have done something similar to Jess, starting from scratch.
I feel like I just learned a lot from Perrin, actually. I was like, oh, that was a great idea. Yeah, exactly. Yes, I feel like I've blacked out a lot of this part of it. It was hard. What did we do? We probably should have done some liking and following of similar accounts, but because we also had to build our accounts from scratch. But we went for almost entirely organic in terms of we didn't create any ad content for it, like online ad content, but we did do a lot of paid spend for boosting the videos. And it is evident which ones we put paid spend on versus the ones we didn't. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would say that's very important.
For sure. How about you, Hope?
I think you can do all the distribution, all the marketing plans you want, but ultimately with Polynesian audiences, they will promote your content themselves. And I mean that by fan edits on TikTok. So with First Place, The writers were really strategic, going off Inky. They wanted to be smart. So since we were doing Polyfest, and if you know the world of Polyfest, in 2014 there was an iconic Polyfest girl called Lena Lee, and it was covered on Fresh TV, and it was a whole thing how amazing Lena Lee was because she was Korean and she was so amazing at her Samoan. So we wrote a character into First Place called Shy, and she has the same sort of storyline, and she goes off and she's a full guy me and she's amazing. Mm-hmm. And so the TikTok fans recognised that, and they recognised Lena Lee, and they reposted it, and they cut an edit of Shy in First Place, and then intercut it with Lena Lee from 2014 with fresh TV footage, and so that itself on TikTok has got 250,000 views and 40k likes, and that's just from a fan edit.
Yeah.
And then there's other things that they've clipped from the film, and it's the same thing, 250,000. The lead girl, Victoria, I always thought, oh gosh, are we making her life too miserable? Like she does all these things at school, and then she goes home and she's cleaning and she's working with her father all night to make money. And there's a clip on TikTok where someone's clipped it and goes, this resonates with me so much, I've never seen anything so relatable. And that's got 300 views, 50k likes. Yeah. So it's if the fans love it, they're going to be your organic marketers.
For sure.
And they're hard to reach.
That's super important. And that kind of leads into, what redefining success looks like a little bit, because that is a result of success, is that people are sharing your content, making their own content from your content. I know that impact for you, Perrin, looks different as well, with people that would have communicated directly with the Gender Agendas page about experiences. Am I right?
Yeah. So from the get-go, our goal, it's nice to get a lot of views. We were very grateful to get a couple of million views across all of our platforms on the first season. And that was amazing, and we're super thankful. But the main mission was always to get this information out there and to get these stories out there and to really humanize our communities and make people feel okay with being themselves, with being trans, takatapui, genderqueer in any way. And that success really came when we started having people reaching out. We were flooded with messages, some in the comments, some in the private DMs, of people who had seen the show and were like, hey, this is the first time I've seen a non-binary person on screen. And that makes me feel better about being non-binary in everyday life. It's, we just had an episode about gender-affirming surgery go out and talking about the long wait lists. And we've been flooded with messages of people going, yeah, I've been on the wait list for this long, I've dealt with these people, and we really need to change this. And, by the end of the season, we were able to collate many, many pages of messages and just look at it and be like, wow, we actually had an impact here. We can go to community events and be like, oh yeah, you've heard of the Gender Agenda. Like, oh, I love that story. Yeah. Oh, I know this person from the show. Like, oh, I was friends with them in high school. They were always amazing. Like, that was amazing for us, and that's what success looked like for us.
Love it. And Jess?
We just wanted views.
You got heaps. I had a score.
Yeah. Well, we just wanted views, and we've done pretty well. We're getting towards 1.5 million across all of our platforms, so that's really cool. And I went back and sort of prepped for this and looked at our original proposal that we had sent through, and we had said that we were, because we didn't have a lot to measure ourselves against at that point, because we put this proposal in like 2023. And so we picked Noob, the TikTok series of Noob, to sort of, because it was vertical, it was on TikTok, it was teen drama. And so based off their numbers, we said we were aiming for 2 million like total views across all our platforms by 6 months. So we haven't quite hit that. I think that might have been a bit ambitious, but we're like well on the way. So that's really cool. And we've also had I say surprising, but this wasn't an aim, but we've had a really great festival run. with all the sort of web fests around the world. We've gotten into like 6 or 7, and we just won Best International Series at the Bilbao Web Fest, which was really cool. But yes, thank you everyone, thank you, that's right. But it's funny because I think that means more to people in this room than it does to our audience. Mm-hmm. Our audience doesn't care about that. But yeah, that was our success views.
So good. For us, we really just wanted to reach as far and wide as possible with audiences about, audio description and these important stories of blind and young low vision people. And we've racked up into the mills with that series as well, and that was important to us, was getting that out as far as possible, because accessibility is important. And that brings us to the end of our session. We have time for questions. There will be a mic coming around.
Someone straight in there, that's amazing.
Amazing work, all of you. It's really inspiring. I wanted to know, because community and engagement and connection is so important, how do you all deal with answering the messages from people?
Very carefully. You definitely have to pick your battles, because not all of the messages that come through are extremely positive. And that's where having a moderation team to keep everybody safe is really, really good. And it's also just good to have a bit of a boundary between, the people on screen and the people throwing hatred at you. But on the good side, I would generally be sent little notifications just to be like, hey, this came through, do you want to respond? And the only strategy I have when I'm responding to stuff like that is just be human. Respond honestly and with empathy. And, that's why people are connecting with you in the first place. They resonated with something in your voice. And so getting your voice back is always going to be a win for them.
But what a crazy responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It can seem very weird, but I think when you're putting stuff up on social media, you have to remember that these are very personal connections you're making with people. I think there's a degree of removal between us and the TV screen, but when you're seeing faces on socials, you're seeing the names, you're seeing, the intricacies of someone's story playing out in front of you, from the everyday bits to the hyper-produced bits. People are going to feel like you're their friend. And you don't have to play the role of their best friend, but sending a little message to be like, hey, thank you for reaching out. I see you. I respond to this detail of your story. Have a great day. Goes a long way.
Kia ora everyone. I'm Thomas Capel. Hi. And these beautiful filmmakers, storytellers, content creators were all funded through Within My Reach, which was a one-off. It was a $5 million injection into New Zealand On Air for youth content, bespoke for social media, and they're all evidence of success. All evidence of success of reaching youth. Millions of views. And because when we were doing I project managed the initiative, and when we were setting it up, Inky Pinky Ponky was our example of success. It was like something that just came out. It was a specific audience. It had done really well online. But each of you have found that specific audience, that specific person that has been your advocate in the algorithm that spread you far and wide. And you've shown what's possible for our communities, all of our communities, when we really reach our rangatahi on the platform. So you should be super proud of yourself, because I'm very proud of you. And well done, well done.
Thank you, Thomas.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there one more question? Any more?
Hello, I've got a question for the Sender series. Did you, like with the gender agenda, did you put in little behind the scenes clips to keep yourself in the algorithm, or did you not want to muddy up your timeline? Did you just do series, or was there more?
No, we did do a little bit, but we didn't do a lot. And honestly, we could have done a lot more, but it just came down to resources, time. how do you fit that into the shoot day along with an EPK poster shoot? Oh my God. So yes, we did do a little bit. Our social media manager, he, if you go onto we didn't put them, oh no we did, we put them on both our Instagram and our TikTok feeds, but we didn't put them on YouTube because we did a slightly different release for that. So we did a couple of ones of like, we got the cast to like ask like, what's your favorite emoji? Haha. I honestly think that's an area where we could have done more, but we just didn't have the resources to do it, unfortunately.
I'll just add to that for a second. It's worth considering right from the get-go, right in pre-production, what kind of extra content you might want to do, because that's going to play into how you do your production. We had to have people set aside 5 minutes of time to do a quick post interview, for those little questions. We had to have someone on set who was, a helping hand for carrying things and for the extra camera, but they were also taking behind the scenes pics the whole time. So when it comes to social releases, especially if you don't just want to do that main content, you need to think about it the whole way through. And having a social media manager from the get-go is the way to do it.
Awesome. I think that's us for today, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. A big round of applause to these wonderful producers. And we'll be floating around as well. I know this is a very deep topic that we can talk forever about, and so if you see us, please come and chat. Would welcome a conversation with you. Thank you.